Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Sandy Smith, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 1 Kim Owen. We warmly welcome the family of Private Joseph Noall Box, whose story will be told shortly. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, students on behalf of Penhurst RSL Youth Swim Club visiting from Penhurst, New South Wales, and visitors to the memorial. If you are able, I now invite you to please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is God by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
If you are able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour that lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operation for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Joseph Noall Box. Joseph Box was born on the 31st of December 1920 in Corowa, New South Wales, one of 6 children born to John and Annie Box. Joseph, commonly known by his middle name Noall, grew up on the family property at Ringwood near Corowa. At the outbreak of the Second World War, Noall was working as a core maker and fitter for Sunshine Harvester Works in Melbourne. On the 23rd of June 1941, he enlisted in the Australian Military Forces, recording his brother John as his next of kin. Their parents had recently died. Noall was assigned to the Australian Engineering Training Depot at Puckapunyal, Victoria, where he spent the winter learning drill and military procedures. On the 27th of October 1941, he was posted to the Reinforcement Engineers at Bonegilla Camp near Albury. The following month, Noall embarked for overseas service from Sydney. Arriving in Lebanon, he was attached to the newly raised 2nd 103rd Australian General Transport Company. His work with the unit consisted of transporting the 7th Australian Division to Palestine in difficult wintry conditions. The men also assisted engineering companies with fortification and construction work. Encamped at Palestine in March 1942, the unit went by train to Port Tufik in Egypt and embarked on the troop ship Lacona. It was a long voyage involving transshipping twice and sailing via South Africa, arriving at Adelaide on the 23rd of May 1942. The men went into camp and continued training. The following month, they moved to Red Bank Camp in Queensland. In July and then August, Private Box was disciplined, first for being absent without leave, and then for leaving camp, losing several days' pay for these misdemeanours. On the 19th of September 1942, Box took cane cutter's leave. It was unusual for the request of this nature to be granted to a soldier, but as so many men were away at the war, the sugarcane industry had appealed to the Commonwealth Government for experienced men to harvest the cane crop. Noall's knowledge of harvesters made him a good candidate. He travelled north to work on sugarcane farms before returning to duty in January 1943. Noall was posted to No. 1 Australian Army Service Corps Training Depot. The following month, he rejoined the 2nd 103rd Australian General Transport. This unit, along with the 2nd Motor Brigade Company, formed the nucleus of a new company, the 4th Armoured Brigade, Australian Army Service Corps. The new company moved into Singleton Camp. Private Box, who had a recognised trade, was allocated to the workshop platoon. In mid-May, the new unit moved to Caboolture, Queensland, from where it undertook training at Canberra Jungle Warfare School and amphibious training at Bribie Island. In August, all uniforms were dyed green by a mobile army laundry unit and rations and equipment set down for tropical areas. Box was attached to the 1st Australian Tank Battalion and embarked for New Guinea. Arriving at Milne Bay on the 26th of August 1943, the unit made camp in a coconut plantation and within a week had their stores in and the workshop operating. Over the following months, Private Box moved to Morobe and then to Boona. Like many men in New Guinea, he suffered from dengue fever and in January 1944 spent 4 days in a field hospital suffering the effects of this mosquito-borne disease. Returning to Queensland in July, Box was posted to the 32nd Australian Transport Platoon at Strathpine. This unit overhauled and reconditioned land vehicles for the Army. In late January 1945, the 2nd 43rd Australian Transport Platoon was formed at Gordon Vale, North Queensland. One of 70 drivers with this unit, Noall spent several months at Gordonvale undertaking training and carrying out driving duties. In early 1945, the platoon embarked for overseas service, along with dozens of jeeps and trailers. Arriving at Balikpapan on the island of Borneo, most of the drivers and their vehicles were attached to a tank attack regiment. On the 1st of August, Private Box was accidentally wounded, receiving a gunshot to his left shoulder. He was immediately admitted to the Australian Field Ambulance, but succumbed to his wounds and died 3 days later. It was 4 weeks before the end of the Second World War. Private Joseph Box was 24 years old. Today, Private Box's remains rest at the Laban War Cemetery under the inscription, "Honourably he lived, honourably he died." Joseph Box's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Joseph Noall Box, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you a very pleasant evening.